Hi everyone. Yeah, so this is the panel before the lunch break, always the bad one, but I will try to keep your attention for at least like 30 minutes and then we will go together to the lunch and continue the discussions. So, like Millie introduced, we have a panel where we'll discuss with two companies. The title is saying top Web3 companies. And we will dive a little bit into their agendas and the purpose and basically what is behind the central exchange operations and how they are contributing to the overall impact and the positive changes that are happening in the world. So the first speaker that I would invite is Gustav from the Bybit. I think Bybit EU, right? Or Bybit in general. Yeah, so Gustav, welcome. And I'm looking for Crystal. Crystal was here in the room a couple of minutes ago, but I don't know where she is now. So maybe we will call her. Okay, in the meantime, Crystal will join. Maybe you can give like a short introduction just about yourself without introducing the company.
Something personal you can share.
All right, yeah, my name is Gustav. I'm born and raised in Sweden, and I'm former fintech founder of a payment company called Petricevic. And I'm love to be in Copenhagen and talk about the impact of the future. And maybe even more personal thing that I love tennis, so lots of tennis playing.
Okay, so how tennis is connected with the central exchanges?
Yeah, we try to find a connection actually. Okay. Maybe it's coming soon.
Okay, we will see if Crystal will join. Until then, maybe we can have like a short introduction into the topic. I'm pretty new in the blockchain space, so
welcome.
I really don't know what are the central exchanges. Can you explain, like, really briefly to the audience, what is the purpose? Why exist? What is your role? And what is the value, basically, that you're giving to the different stakeholders, I would say, from the blockchain ecosystem or Web3 ecosystem?
I mean, the difference with blockchain technology is that it's decentralized, so you run different projects decentralized with a technical hub where you can do transactions through. So to do exchange transactions, you need somewhere to transfer the value. So I mean, in the Wall Street market, you have Nasdaq as the technical provider to do those transactions. But with the blockchain technology, everyone is open to connect to all different blockchain technologies and provide liquidity to do an exchange of trades. And
so
what we do is
just to interrupt you a little bit, so you can understand the blockchain. I'm a new guy. If there are experienced people in blockchain space, please jump in. This is the panel where we'll have like a dynamic discussion. If you have the question, comment, just jump in. We'll provide you with a microphone. My colleague is there and we can do that. But I was thinking, you know, that the blockchain and Web3 space is more about values and principles, right? So the idea was to avoid the middlemen and the intermediaries. If I understand correctly, we have a token issuer, we have a token holder, then we have maybe the central exchange within the ecosystem, and then we have central exchanges, right? Who are acting more like a bridge between the communities, blockchain communities, Web3 communities, and the financial institutions. Is that right? Are you more like a middleman intermediary?
Yeah, exactly. So we are official middlemen, so we handle the holdings of your tokens or your coins, and then everyone can exchange them. As like we are the technical hub for the exchange, exactly as like Nasdaq. So it works in the same way, but the difference is that the underground where the transactions are going through is the blockchain technology. So yeah, we are just the middleman that handles the exchange. So that where the trades are happening, where you find buyers and sellers for each token.
Okay, and maybe we can go to the purpose statement. What is the purpose of the central exchanges beyond the technical level? Basically,
to bring liquidity and provide the simplest way of exchange, buy and sell tokens. So I mean, everyone can decide to do it with blockchain technology. If you look at the traditional finance scene, it's very centralized, so you have very few hubs doing this. that runs through very few places where you can do
I'm
it.
confused now. You're saying traditional financial institutions are very centralized.
Yes.
But your name is also central.
Yes, but in blockchain it's centralized because we are one hub of many hubs, and you can, of course, be a decentralized exchange where you have no hub. Everyone is connected directly to the blockchain. So then it's no central authority at all. But what I say here that we have like hundreds or even soon maybe thousands of centralized exchanges around the world connecting to the same blockchain technologies. That means it's much more decentralized in a centralized manner than the traditional financial scene, because the traditional financial scene only runs through almost like Wall Street or some hubs throughout the whole world. And that brings also an issue of liquidity, where it can be very stocked. And like you have, look at the traditional financial scene, it's based on that you need to have a lot of money to get access. That's almost the base rule for the traditional finance scene. And what I see blockchain doing, and like we pushing, is to enable financial technologies for everyone. And with blockchain now getting so deeply evolved, we have like breakthroughs that we can do cheaper transactions faster than the traditional infrastructure. Okay. And that's getting very interesting then, because you have then, I would say, a more secure for the future with a more decentralized base. And then we have also on the top layer, like the exchanges as us, bringing the liquidity to the market in a more decentralized manner.
Fantastic. We have Crystal with us. Woohoo! Thank you very much for joining us. So Crystal, maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit and answer the first question that I already asked Gustav. So what are the central exchanges, what is Kraken, and what is the purpose of Kraken?
That's a lot. Hi everyone. I'm Crystal from Kraken, and a little bit about myself. I fell in love with everything that blockchain, offered years ago, and pivoted my whole career to pursue that and to build out in this space. I'm really happy to be here with everybody today. And I've been at Kraken for the past 3 years. Currently, they're a Chief Sanctions Officer. So that's my day-to-day is ensuring that we're complying with sanctions. But I wear many hats, probably like many of you here today. And outside of sanctions, I'm also the head of product compliance for all of the DeFi offerings, because that's probably the more, some of the more complicated stuff to navigate, when you're looking at legalities, regulations, the tech, and understanding where within the tech the regulations actually kick in. So I enjoy the marriage of the technology and the regulations. And I'm also an advisor to the Inc. Foundation. And the Inc. Foundation was established by Kraken, and it promotes and supports the development of, or the dApp developers on Kraken's L2 Inc. So a lot of hats.
Yeah, you were not there. Gustav introduced himself that he's playing like tennis. So we started like this, but you already did a lot of roles. Oh, yeah. So going back to the question, what are the central exchanges from your point of view, and what is Kraken role, I would say, in the Web3 ecosystem?
Well, the centralized exchanges play a critical role, right? And they give you access that is simplified and secure, and you're able to access, global markets. And I think that they play a critical role, but I also think that DeFi plays a critical role. And I think that they really augment one another, because I think that there's things today that just don't make sense for centralized exchanges, and they should live in DeFi, where permissionless is still king, right? Mm-hmm.
So Gustav mentioned one of the values that central exchanges are bringing is liquidity. Do you see any other value propositions from the point of the central exchanges toward the Web3 communities?
Yeah, so liquidity is one, but I think that through creative product offerings, you can provide access to investments, yield, and just different fiduciary opportunities in certain countries where there's restrictions, right? There are certain restrictions where maybe you can't invest in certain assets or stocks or whatnot. But now through the tokenization of assets, people are able to now make investments into certain assets in countries that they couldn't do before. So I think that that's a big part. And my kids call me a boomer. I don't know that I'm a boomer quite yet, but I'm going to refer to myself as a boomer. And even though I'm a statistician and I'm a data engineer and all these things, you know, the world of blockchain and crypto is still scary and complex. Even for myself as an engineer, whenever I'm going to move money, I'm just like, oh, Jesus. You know, very careful. And I can't even imagine being a non-technical person or somebody who's not been living in this space for years or any amount of time and not being afraid of it. So I think that centralized exchanges still have a ways to go in simplifying. I made the joke yesterday, I don't know if you were in the room, we call it the DeFi Mullet at Kraken, and that's and for those of you who don't know what a mullet is, it's an American hairstyle where the front of a man's hair looks very professional, but in the back it's long, and so professional in the front, party in the back. And so the DeFi Mullet is where you can take the Web 2 experience and make that the front end and have, you know, the Web 3 or the blockchain experience in the back end. And when you can do that and you can really simplify it and add that layer of security, I think that that's where central exchanges will add more value and create more adoption and make this the norm. And we're getting there little by little, but I still think that we have a ways to go, because even doing what I would consider simple things, you have to still go through on-chain, get off, you know, leave your platform, go onto a DeFi wallet, then go deep into layer 2s, and then how do you get into vaults? And nobody should be having to research all of that to make yield, right? And anyways, so long story short, I think that we have a lot more simplification to go.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, from my perspective, I see central exchanges as a crucial players in mainstreaming also the crypto, right, industry. But from your perspective, when we are talking about the business model and the core purpose of the central exchanges, you can maybe focus on your specific exchange. Do we see any evolution happening from the beginnings? You were established in 2012, something, Kraken?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're existing for a couple of years, right? So do you face some kind of evolution there in terms of the purpose, in terms of the business model? I noticed also that, this year, your annual, revenues and the profits, they're growing, which basically always opens the question in every industry, in every market, what we will do good with that profit. So what is happening within your organizations? Can you a little bit describe, how are you moving from the traditional core business model more to, we are looking what is there in the impact space and how basically we can return the value or how we can convert the trust that basically was given through our customers back to the society?
We are here today in the blockchain for good that Bybit have invested a lot of money into, and what we want to see is we are like a centralized layer on top of the decentralized industry. The decentralization of finance, I think, is just starting. And now when we have these new frameworks that we're working at, I think we're going to see a lot of new projects coming up that actually use this technology to build something from the ground up that change the basis for our society, and it's going to help us follow with our goals that we want a more sustainable society going forward. So it's very important to see that aspect, that crypto and blockchain enables us to maybe build something from the ground up again, because I think we are in the times of everything is going to rebuild. With AI, we have blockchain, and now soon we're going to see robots in publics, and we're going to rechange everything and rebuild everything. And I think it's very good then to have a decentralized structure in the baseline to enable everyone to do something good with it. and to rebuild everything from the ground up. And yeah, Bybit wants to see that change happen, and we really believe in the decentralized technology, and we want to enable that to as many people as possible. And so we are a core fintech company, I would say, that now enters the traditional financial scene as an innovative fintech company. But we are also enabling a lot of new projects all the time. And I hope we can see much more projects that are alive in the real world with like real world assets, or like agricultural commodities, businesses that engage with the cryptocurrencies in the future. I would say will be really interesting to see.
Yeah. Okay. So if I understand correctly, if I hear it correctly, you are aiming to integrate the impact side into your business model. Every day you're progressing, to see how you can have more impactful initiatives within the Bybit, right? Is the same situation in Kraken? I'm only interested, is really impact part of your DNA,
and when
part
you
of
say
the
impact,
business model, or it's more like a marketing side, like, I'm working for UNDP, and, we're working with multiple private partnerships, dozens of researchers. There is a huge market of SDG washing in general, etc. So how we can move from there, how Kraken and Bybit can really showcase that, impact is part of the DNA, of the operations, of the strategies, etc., of the business model. Maybe you can also start sharing one example, one impact story that can convince, guys in the audience and myself, no, really, impact is core of our business activities.
All right, thank you. That's a great question. Great question there. No, so is it myth or is it for real? And when you look at Kraken, it's given $10 million to Ukrainians affected by the war. Jesse gave that out of his pocket, or Kraken's pockets, to Ukrainians. And as a result of different regulations around the world, when certain countries become sanctioned by a regulator, and the citizens of that country are literally kicked out of the financial system of certain countries as a result, Kraken has waived all fees for the removing the funds to comply with those laws. And Kraken, through its layer 2, its Inc. layer 2 and the Inc. Foundation, which it established, gives millions of dollars to developers, to DApp developers in the L2 space to build out the world of tomorrow. And these are things that we've done at Kraken, but through the new partnership with the UNDP, I'm looking forward to finding one or two passion projects that we can continue to do, and when you say, give me a real world example and show me that it's not just bullshit, right? Those weren't your words. I'd say that, for anybody who's familiar with the US, it does a lot of heavy-handed sanctions, and people are victims of that, right? When you look at Syria, it was recently, the sanctions were removed by various parties, and I was really excited. I rallied the engineers and I said, let's go ahead, and I know we've got a ton of work on our book of work, but let's rally and let's remove the sanctions now that Syria is unsanctioned. And we went through all of this work, and then you have to check in with your bank partners, and there's a series of things that happens. And our bank partners actually said, no, Syria is still outside of our risk appetite. I said, but it's not illegal. It's fine. And they said, no, it's not in our risk appetite to accept Syrians. And furthermore, we don't have the capacity to technically wind down all of the technical blocks put in place to prevent doing any transactions. So when you think about it, we literally stopped working on all of our core priorities to be able to serve the Syrian community again. And we had to stop because our bank partners basically said they'd drop us if we did that. And what did we do? We still allowed, removed all of these restrictions where we could without impacting our bank partners. So if somebody's traveling through Syria, they can use our services. If you're a Syrian person, you can have our DeFi wallet. You can access our layer 2. But it just shows you the complexities, right? You can start with a really great, goal of serving a certain group or making a certain impact. And sometimes you have to deal with regulations or parties outside of your control, and then you don't hit the goal you wanted, but you still do what you can. And as the daughter of Cuban immigrants myself, there's nothing closer to my heart than impact. So I'm happy to be here and continue the partnership.
Yeah, thank you. On the previous panel, basically, they discussed a lot about the pilots, right? So we still need time to move from the pilots to real projects, because there is a lot of responsibilities that's affecting this. Gustav, maybe you can share some story from the Bybit perspective.
I have been there since I started Bybit in July, so I haven't been deep involved yet in different projects, but I would say from my perspective regarding coming from the traditional financial scene, starting a fintech company 8 years ago, and my vision was always I wanted to change the financial infrastructure, I wanted to make change, but I realized that the change is happening in the blockchain world, and that's why I'm here, because I feel like the whole narrative for a baseline for why blockchain and why it existed is to create more freedom to create new stuff. And in the baseline we need maybe a new way of handle capital in a good way, so we actually can get capital in the right hands for people that have great ideas and great energy to do change in the world. And the real impact I can see is often driven when the right people with the right leadership, with the right capital do things, then we get change. So it's both a cultural thing, and it's also drives from a leadership from the heart. And when you are always pressured in the infrastructure to create a profit very fast and in a way that maybe are not sustainable, then you maybe divide from your goal. So I would say that what blockchain gives us is some new infrastructure of technology to actually build structures together with your communities. So I think in the future, I think we need to be more connected with our audience and our customers and our purpose to actually get success. We can't only just say that we need to have this idea that going to not be truthful to our customers, but it's going to be profitable. Because of a lot of business models is based on the idea that, oh, this is good, this is how we're going to bring a lot of profit. But profit needs to be connected to the actual good that you do to your customer. And I believe that blockchain technology is the solution for that problem. And that's why that the whole idea of we helping the blockchain industry to evolve with us as an exchange, we need to then enable it even more, and that's also creating change. But of course we sponsor this event, and we do a lot of things, we invest a lot of impact projects and so on, but I have no exact clear answer to that yet.
Okay, yeah, maybe your colleagues from Bybit can share something on this, but for the last 30 years, when I started being part of the financial system, because I got employed, I got a bank account, etc. There's the narrative that traditional finance institutions are necessary evil. Is already happening this with the central exchanges? Do we have already this narrative and public perceptions that central exchanges are also some kind of the necessary evil because they are acting as a bridge between the central exchanges and basically traditional financial exchanges. And connected to this, like I said in the previous statement and the question, I see that profit is growing. So in terms of the real impact DNA or real impact business model, what that really means. What is the percentage of your EBITDA or maybe profit? I couldn't find really the data on your operations. Kraken has more transparency, Bybit doesn't have so much transparency about the financial results. Can you share now with the audience, what is your impact strategy in that terms? I like the idea that, or basically the practice that Kraken already has, you know, supporting the, if I understood correctly, core development collectives, you know, working on the security issues. I think this is really, really important and impactful for the entire Web3 industry, right? So, is there any like a strategy within your companies where you are looking, you know, what will happen in the next 5 years, how we will be part of this? Of, like you Crystal mentioned, okay, now we will start maybe working with the UNDP or UN agencies, and we will have maybe some specific use cases. But what that means really in terms of your operations, profits, and percentage of the profits that will be dedicated to this?
I wasn't prepared to answer that. I prepared late. I should have prepared sooner for this.
It's similar to the question that yeah.
No, I didn't make it that far in my notes of preparation, but no, I think that, so yeah, we do put out our earnings publicly. I think folks have read online that Kraken is moving towards IPO and making its progress there, so we do have transparency with our metrics. But when you're, to your question of, you know, what percentage of impact, I don't have a metric for that, but I know that for the UN SDG 9 and 10, which is focused on innovation and inclusivity, is at the root of who we are. You know, innovation and secure innovation is where we spend all of our time, and the inclusivity aspect, barring legal or regulatory limitations. In fact, there's proprietary things I can't really speak on that we are looking to roll out in the future, where we serve more of that community who doesn't have access to the financial system through lack of having certain types of ID and stuff like that, through building partnerships and having intermediaries. So that will continue, but I will owe you the answer on, you know, a specific metric of because I think that you're asking, how are you going to reinvest? And I think that a lot of what we do already speaks to a few of the SDGs, 9, 10, 4, 14, and 17 through our partnership. But I think that it's going to be something that we're going to continue to mature as the company, you know, finds its way. And now that we are working closer and closer with financial, and you said, is it a necessary evil, the financial institutions? Yes, but I think that I also see a move where players in this space are becoming the financial institution through trust licensing, banking licensing, or purchasing in banks. You know, because I think that regardless, you still need the on-ramp and you need the off-ramp for certain things that crypto simply can't do. And I think that there's still some friction there in getting those rails going, and those rails in and of themselves also perpetuate limitations to certain groups, right? The young woman who was here talking about the farmers and stuff like that, you know, getting bank accounts to them is really hard for many reasons outside of the farmers' controls. So I think that as crypto moves forward and as it becomes more mainstream, it's going to be interesting to see that when crypto purchases banks or gets these banking licenses, how do they use these new licenses in creative ways as they've been creative for the past, you know, decade in continuing to bridge the divide. So that's where I'm going to be looking to take, you know, to the playbook and see, well, you know, if we step into this space, you know, not myself or Kraken, but players, how do you use this new licensing to close those gaps?
Okay, thank you. Gustav?
I don't have an exact percentage of profit, but we invest a lot in products that we think are good for bringing impact to the world. But I also, I mean, evil, I mean, I wouldn't say that companies or money is evil at all. It's just based on what values that drives them that base it on if it's evil or it's not. I mean, what I think is that we need to create more connections with the local communities and what actually are needed for people in our communities. And that connection, I think, it's the business model of the future. And how you create that connection, I would say, is to create projects that have a clear transparency in how you do things in all different aspects. But I love macroeconomics, and macroeconomics is very interesting because what you see on it, we see that we have a lot of issues around our governments today. We have a lot of debt in the system, and all our traditional currencies is like based on debt, if you would say. So what we can bring with cryptocurrencies is an asset currency, a currency that have not a debt connected to it. And I think it's very important when you build a project from scratch, you need to have not debt connected to it, because that's going to pull you down in the beginning. If you're like a startup, you raise capital, you don't raise debt in the beginning. You raise like startup capital, and then you do a second round, you raise more capital. And like longer down the road, you can take on risk and do some debt. But you never do that in the beginning, because it's going to sink the whole project, because it's too risky and volatile in the beginning. And what cryptocurrency and this infrastructure for this is just a very efficient way of like combining the idea of a currency and a company into something new. So I think when you launch cryptocurrency projects, you launch something that are maybe a combination of a normal currency and a company, but are directly much more connected to your community. So you have like solved 3 problems in one. In a structural sense, that's going to probably bring much more impact and build something that's much more sustainable for the future in a lot of perspectives. This is maybe complicated to you that haven't like engaged in the business, and in like, but I think that's why I tried to explain this, because I think it's very interesting to see when you talk about money, it's always often connected to debt. And all startups and things that you start is often connected to assets and equity. And that's important to understand.
I have really big personal dilemma, because I was attracted to the blockchain industry in particular because there is the high level of transparency, high level of immutability of the data. We can be discussing with a couple of foundations in the protocols here. You can see our salary, you can see our travel expenses, you can see everything on chain, everything is transparent. In the case of the central exchanges, I'm a little bit confused because there is no that level of the transparency happening. So for me, it's really hard to figure out, how to connect all of these dots. I understand there is the bridge, intermediary, middleman, role which is needed. But also you mentioned, Crystal, we see SDGs, couple of SDGs, but how we can go, beyond this, how we can choose a couple of SDG indicators that are fully in line with our DNA and the business model, and how we will measure this, how we'll really prove that we are, contributing to that SDGs. Like the last PricewaterhouseCoopers report on the US companies was like 74% are just using SDGs, for the washing purpose, for the market purpose. Whenever you say we are aligned with that SDG, it's already washing. So if you're saying we are contributing to that specific SDG target, then we know that you're really taking care about this, that you're measuring, you're doing the analytics, you're doing strategies and planning, toward to achieving this. So, for example, if we will have the case, we had a SDG Accelerator panel, right before. So currently we have more than 300 different pilots, let's say like this, across the globe from 124 countries with specific challenges that could be like a real great use cases. And we have already collaborations with multiple layer 1, layer 2s that are working with us on this, that are also present on the panel. What we can expect from central exchanges, like you said, we are aiming to see, how we can integrate the impact into our DNA and the business model. We would like to see how we can contribute also to the good stories and the good causes in the world. But now I'm saying, we have like 300 of them already in the pipeline. What could be your approach? What is the next step? How you can work with big ecosystems like UN, UNDP, other UN agencies, and how we can really contribute to this, having in mind that you also need to take care about the, grassroots developer communities, etc. Because for UN, privacy, security, these are also top priorities, like for your organizations, right? So maybe the last message here before the launch. what do you see is the future? What is your strategy in terms of real contribution, really proving that, having a proof that the conversion of the profit is going back to the society to really specific, impactful, transparent initiatives that are making a huge value and positive change.
So I think it's going to be a process of maturation, right? And if you look at the basic needs, right? If you look at Maslow's basic needs, and think about that for crypto. First and foremost, you need to get it off the ground, and you need to make money. Without money, you can't invest, you can't subsidize, you can't support. So you need to make sure that it's profitable. And the other thing that you have to deal with is the regulations. And for a while, there was a lot of ambiguity, regulatorily speaking. And then in the past year and a half, it's just been an onslaught of new regs and laws around the world. And for anybody who's working on a global level, the amount of resource and time and dedication it takes to make sure that you're compliant and that you've taken care of all these things. So I think it's a process of the maturity model, right? Getting all of these things established to create that space, that profit, that it takes resources within the company, and it takes time, money, resources to be able to dedicate honestly and truly, not just on paper for marketing purposes, right? And for you to get there, it's maturity of all of those things. And I think that crypto's getting there, and I think our peers are getting there. We probably have to finish, wading through the regulatory stuff that's going on. But from Kraken's perspective, putting aside the 10 million for Ukrainians and the million of waived fees for Russians in response to the Russia sanctions, and the other 12 million that we've set aside for developers on L2 to bring cool new apps to the L2 world. I mean, just in there, and since 2022, is $25 million that have been set aside and used. So I think that speaks to Kraken's core values. But as the company matures, to your point, I think that it behooves everybody in this space to do this, and I think that banks went through that process too. If you go to Citi's website, I used to be at Citi, so I'm more familiar with theirs. You know what it is that they're investing in, what type of groups they're supporting, the inclusion, women around the world, supporting women, education, and they didn't start there, right? It was a process of maturity, and also shareholders, right? When you go public, shareholders holding and requiring that accountability. That's how I saw it happen at Citi. Part of it was internal, but a lot of it was from shareholders having those requirements. So to answer your question, I think it will come, and it will be a process of maturity. And as for what SDG everybody should take on board, I think that that's a very personal question to who the organizations are and what they want to speak to and support.
Maybe just a little, how the people in the audience can help you in this, going faster to that point.
To use your voice on social media.
Okay.
Because I think that crypto listens. Crypto Twitter listens.
Thank you. Gustav.
I mean, the SDG goals is very clear what we need to do, but I think we also need a new plan or protocol for the change. And I agree really much with you that I truly believe that blockchain technology and this industry is the industry that's going to help us evolve in the new era of things. And I mean, now we have finally got the confirmation from the traditional financial scene and the regulators that we are allowed to exist in this market in Europe. So I mean, now we are adapting to that perspective and all that kind of things. But what we're also doing is enable the financial industry to evolve, to be more open and to be more accessible for everyone. And I think that's mainly the core thing that we bring right now at the moment. But I mean, further on, we're going to see a lot of things change, and I hope it's going to be a lot of good impact in that change as well. And I know that with the leadership in Bybit and for myself, we are really passionate about see that change happening and enable that change. So I'm excited about the future and happy to be here. And yeah, Thanks.
Yeah, all of us in the room are true believers of the change. That's why we're here, right? Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Gustav, for the participation. Thank you also to the audience for raising the hands, asking the questions. We really had a dynamic discussion here today. But we can follow up on the social media, like Crystal basically proposed. So try to be active, try to raise your voice, try to advocate for the good things in the world.